you people to understand.
Tell them that we bonded.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them that we bonded.
You're bonded, you're bonded.
Tell them that we bonded.
You're bonded, you're bonded. I am a true born Belizean.
Tell them that we bonded.
Belize my home, my native land.
Tell them that we bonded.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we bonded.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them that we bonded.
You're bonded, you're bonded.
Tell them that we bonded.
You're bonded, you're bonded. I am a true born Belizean.
Tell them that we bonded.
Belize my home, my native land.
Tell them that we bonded.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we bonded.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them that we bonded.
You're bonded, you're bonded.
Tell them that we bonded.
You're bonded, you're bonded. I am a true born Belizean.
Tell them that we bonded.
Belize my home, my native land.
Tell them that we bonded.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we bonded.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them that we bonded.
You're bonded, you're bonded.
Tell them that
Greetings again and welcome to another episode of Navel String Connections. I'm Bilal Morris, live from Los Angeles in my studio here. And Navel String Connection comes to you, the Belizeans in the Belizean diaspora, every Thursday. And the times have changed, as we know, in the North American region. It used to be on 5:30, but now with the change of time. But Belize stays the same. The Belize stays the same. It's always 7:30. So Belizeans in the diaspora, if you are informing a Belizean in Belize about the time, make sure that we are letting them know that 7:30, don't change, as they would say in radio, don't change that dial. And again, I want to say, we want to invite you, the Belizeans in the Belizean diaspora, Belizeans abroad, another word for diaspora, in the United States, particularly the United Kingdom, Africa, Asia, Central America and the Caribbean. Tell one to tell one. And again, this show is sponsored by the Ministry of Tourism and Diaspora Relations. We want to say that again, that this show is sponsored by the Ministry of Tourism and Diaspora Relations. Noor Muhammad is our producer, and the executive producer is XTV Most High. And we want to send a big shout out to all the Belizeans on the ground, back home, down on the ground, to tune in. And this would be a very, very interesting show today. We are bringing back our sister, Dr. Danalyn Myvett, with the fantastic epic explosion that she puts off every year in commemoration of Women's Month. And we are so pleased to, I always tell my students, be respectful of these ladies in the classroom, boys, because they are your mothers. How come they can be your mothers? And so they can understand that, you know, Danalyn, these young men, they are your mothers, boy. Be respect. Have respect. You come from them. But I sing that so much in my classroom that I think by now they get it. But again, we have a very informative and entertaining and educational show today, because our sister will bring us these news, views, and reviews and all the highlights of this epic show. And we want to say that Danalyn is not a stranger to the airwaves. Last year we had her on. ARIA LIGHTFOOT and I hosted, and we had her on, and it was a very, very enjoyable and effective show. And we hope that we had brought some audience and some help to sell out some of those tickets, Dr. Myvett. And again, we want to say Navel String Connections here. I am Bilal Morris, your host for today's show. Next week, we'll have our sister, ARIA LIGHTFOOT, joining us for another episode of Navel String Connections. We do the show now one in, one out every other week. And again, we want to invite you, our listeners. And we just want to say that Dr. Danalyn Myvett comes to us as a business expert, professional, guiding authentic growth rises from collaboration and focus. Just reading from her resume here that is so packed. But we will let her tell us more about it. But she is the founding president and lead consultant of the Belize Center of Training and Development, BCTB, which helps clients elevate their enterprise using innovative management practices. And that says a lot, right? That to unpack that, we let our sister unpack that. And again, we want to say, welcome you, Dr. Danalyn Myvett, to Navel String Connection for a second time. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Bilal. I'm excited to be here. Navel String Connection is quite an apt name in terms of even our relationship, recognizing that we have a connection from our youth and our very young years. So I'm excited to be here again and to have been invited back. And I look forward to having a very engaging hour with you.
Yes, as you rightfully said, we Navel String very way back, I believe, from teenagers. We know each other from way back then. And the story is a large one. We need 2 shows to tell that story, right, Danalyn? We need 2
yes,
shows.
We do.
But we Navel String very way back in Belize there, as our sister is rightfully stating here. Danalyn and I, we go way back as teenagers. I knew her from her years at St. Hilda's College, myself at St. Michael's. And we were with there. There was a camaraderie between St. Michael's College, an all-boys high school, and St. Hilda's High School. There was this camaraderie. We knew each other from across these campuses, and very much so. That is the organic part, Danalyn, that I could speak to you from an informal standpoint. That I know you, I know who you are, and what you're all about. I've always been a progressive, dynamic individual in your life, always pushing business initiatives. We're so proud of you today to see that you have risen to the top of your game. You have risen to the top of your game, and we applaud that, because the struggle of women, as we are celebrating and commemorating Women's Month, the struggle of women in Belize is a history on its own, being that we know Belize is a male-dominated society, but they would not have been the men, even all these leaders and politicians would not have been where they are today if it was not for their women who have risen. I was informing someone the other day about the growth of the People's United Party, that it was built on the backs of Belizean women, particularly in Belize City. So we, in recognition of Women's Month, we want to talk about that. And I want to, before we go into your show that you put off every year, celebrating Belizean women, talk about, for you, Danalyn, what does it mean? What does this Women's Month mean to you? What is it that in our little confine called Belize, with the exceptions of the rest of the world, I know we are tied into a global international global women dynamic society, but talk about what Women's Month means to you as a professional.
Thank you very much for that question, and I will respond to it through the very show itself that I created. And the reason why I'm going to do it that way is because the tenet on which the show, this particular event, emerged speaks to the entire matter of Women's Month. It's germane to why the event got created. 3 points very clearly anchor it. I think of it as a stool, and it's to support, inspire, and strengthen women. So in this particular month. What does the 3 tenets mean? It is the idea that we must support, encourage, and be there for each other as women. So that's the support. It is to inspire. We all journey through life, and we have peaks, we have valleys, and we need someone to be able to lean on or to look to. Oftentimes, we are able to grow because of the fact that we look at others who have achieved what it is we would want to achieve. And therefore, it's to inspire. And the strengthen comes from this point of view that we are a sisterhood. And therefore, I do not, and this is my personal opinion, I do not support the thinking that is oftentimes expressed that it takes a woman to bring a woman down. I don't believe in that thinking because I think that's a human dynamic and that it's too gender biased to even suggest that it's women bringing down women. I think that's a human dynamic. Men bring down men, men bring down women. So it's a human dynamic, and I dislike it actually when I hear it being genderized in the context that it takes a woman to bring a woman down. And so the strengthen is the idea of let us strengthen our connection. This entire event, I am leading it. It is my innovation, but I would not be able to achieve it without the many women who are right there behind me, holding me up, supporting me, giving me ideas, are there in the trenches with me. And so you find that what has happened is groups of women, friends, families, whatever, they come out together to come to the show. And that is germane to this whole idea that women, we need a support system, we need inspiration, and we must be able to find the strength to be able to move on and to cross the many hurdles that you earlier mentioned we often face.
Very much so. And as a connection to that, you speak, you know, from a position of experience and knowledge. Being a mother yourself, you have been in Belizean society for most of your life. I mean, you live there. You have worked and built your career in that regards. But tell us, if you may, give our viewers some kind of historical context to what you are saying. What is the history of the struggle of women in Belize? I mean, you stand on the shoulders of giants, as you very well know.
That is very broad.
Right? This is a brief historical context in terms of where do you come from as this Belizean woman?
Okay.
You stand on the shoulders of these dynamic Belizean unsung heroes, for many of them. Talk about that, if you may.
Okay, I will speak to it through the voice, the context of where I have the greatest ability to speak. And it would be from the business context. There are those who could speak to the struggle and the context of women through a political lens. I will speak to it through a business lens. Taken in that context, it wasn't until quite a bit of reflection that made me realize I came from a mother who was an entrepreneur. But most people would not and did not even know my mother was at home and was doing pastries and meat pies and all of that from her home with 2 employees going out into the streets to sell her stuff. Very traditional upbringing I had, which in that context for my dad, it was my mother would not be going out there doing that because she's a stay-at-home mom and he's the man of the house and he's taking care of things. But my mother simply loved the idea of earning and doing her own things. And she had this talent. It was really a talent. And I can remember her laughing and mentioning so many times that Daria Meat Pie used to come and buy so many meat pies from her, you know. And she had 2 employees that go out to the schools around where we live on Hydes Lane, and one that went into all the business places. And she was just making all this money that was hers, but she just could not go out, and she wanted a storefront. And she was like, well, my dad has to do the film, and that was not him. So when I reflected, I recognized, and my father, being a self-employed person as a contractor, I came from a tradition of entrepreneurship. But more importantly, in terms of the gender issue and the woman issue, I watched my mother doing excellent work in terms of making her pastries. And so I also saw what it takes to strive, to do good work, because she took pride when people said, you know, I love it. Oh, your tart, the dough, the this, the that, you know, the jam roll. And I learned very early in my life through the example of my mom, and indeed my dad, but more hands-on my mom, because this is happening in the house, what it takes. One, the level of discipline, the level of dedication in order to take on entrepreneurial work. Now, this was in the 70s, okay? And I will give the context because you asked it in the context. Now I'm watching my mom and I'm thinking, I think my dad have an easier life, because he leaves at 8, he comes back at 6, and his work day is done. For me, I thought my mother work never seems to end. I wake up, she's up. I go to sleep, she's still up. So I chose a path that was quite different. I'm like, I'm going into corporate. I'm going professional. And I did in the 80s. And the path at that time was so slim in terms of when you look around, and we still have a gender issue with it in Belize, in terms of the highest level, corporate level, being held by women and the number of women there. We still have a gender gap that we need to continue to work on. But I can clearly remember, you know, walking into boardroom in the 80s and early 90s, and I am one of 2 women in the room, and having to make a very clear, for me, having to make a very clear position of who I am and the fact that I had the ability to contribute and contribute meaningfully. What was lacking then is that I did not have the benefit of mentors who were women, because it was so rare. So it was not readily available. Today, young professional women have the ability to be able to tap into more women that they can see and say, she has been there, I can be there. For me, that was not the case. I had to rely on mentors who were males, which shaped the dynamics of how I show up and how I present, and just my very essence as a professional in the boardroom.
Outstanding. I mean, that's very powerful in terms of how you present that concept of where your role model as from a woman's standpoint in relating to that context of who is it that is our role models, that your mother played that significant role. And as you speak, I have not heard any other from a historical context. You know, that was your, and it is so beautiful, because those are the unsung heroes, our mothers. You know, those are the ones that we hear about, these outstanding people, these outstanding women in Belizean society who have paved the way, that are heroes, right? In Belizean society. But we rarely hear about those unsung heroes, and that mother, that mother figure that motivates their child to do excellence, to do excellence. And it's so very interesting to see that your business, your entrepreneurship, and your business passion came from out of her, not by you being at the university and studying business, but watching her work. You know?
Yeah, my mother used to go to bed at 12, 1 in the morning, have these hundreds of tart base made, have, you know, and it's like night after night. And she literally enjoyed that. I can remember her, she would buy tickets, we would go to basketball at Bird's Eye, and that's a part of her waiting up for us, you know, on the Friday nights thing. And she would come and the table would be spread while she's listening to the game, she's doing her work. It literally was a passion she had, because it was really not something that we needed in terms of our family structure as income, but she just simply wanted to do something for herself with the talent that she had.
That's so beautiful to establish her independence. Despite the fact that your father made it clear that she don't really have to be doing that. He's the head of the household. He's going to take care of business, but she just wanted to establish. And I think to present that to you as maybe the only female in your family, to present that to her daughter, to let her daughter understand. I think most of these parents, they want us to find, especially mothers, want us to find our own way. You know, let us find our own way. And so I would want to ask you then, what is it that, in comparison to the woman in your mother's time and the woman in your time, and looking at your mother as a talented entrepreneur, right, that established independency and self-sufficiency as an example to you, and what is it now with new women, the women in your time that are educated, right, that came up in a different time? What is it that you're seeing that is the difference between that time and your time? Was it talent that they had? Or was it being that today most of women like you are educated and you're able to build a business successfully? But do we still have those kinds of women today like your mother who have just talent, who have built businesses and have established? Do we still have those women like that today?
Yes, I am one of them. Now, because talent is talent, right?
But you are highly educated.
But talent is talent, right?
But talent is talent, right?
Yeah, the talent I have is different from hers.
Hey.
Okay? And so my ability, because I will tell you that one of my greatest talent is that I'm a strategic thinker. I am sufficiently aware of who I am to know what is my strength, to celebrate my strength, and to know where to connect to get my strength supported, because that's what leadership is. I also recognize and I'm aware that I'm a very strong leader. And I'm not going to pretend to be modest, because one of the things that impacts or affects women a lot, particularly in the business world, is that we don't have the confidence in ourselves. A man would walk into a room and would say, I did that. And a woman will quietly sit down and not mention she did it, that often she did certain things that oftentimes her thoughts and her innovation get stolen. So for me, talent is talent. The difference is because the generation before us, many of them in my household and many of my peers, our parents drum into us, you know, get an education, get a good education. And they would send us to school and say, go get that education, because the generation from which we came used to look at public servants and think, that's the big job, you know, that was the big job. We used to hear about this one and that one. And so it was, for many of them, they didn't get the opportunity to further their education. And so they would say, go get your education. But let's not forget that there are many women today who are still doing what my mother did.
Yes.
There are many women today who are getting up early and standing over a pot of rice and beans, over a Johnny cake, and making it in order to oftentimes take care of their family, but it is still the talent that they have. Mine just, I had the privilege, I won't even call it benefit. I had the privilege of coming from parents who had the ability to be able to have supported my education through the path it took. And therefore, my talent then was able to rise You know, some people, their talent get thwarted because they may not get access to have it being displayed in the way it ought to. Although there are those who would argue once you work hard enough and you do what you do, you can't help but rise. But still, I mean, the abilities I have got honed through my educational path. And my parents, I'm grateful. I love them. They're both deceased. They're always in my heart. Was able to take me through the path that allowed what are my talent to shine. And so for me, I have the ability, which is what the Celebrate Her concert is all about. I have the ability oftentimes to be able to identify gaps in environment and come up and to think of something that can fit that gap. For instance, in 2015, when I came up with the Lead Hership Conference, at that time, no one was doing conferences focusing on women entrepreneurs. I was the first one that started that initiative in 2015 when I was asked to be the Women Entrepreneurship, when I was appointed to be the Women Entrepreneurship Day Ambassador for Belize, and I had to create a signature event to bring that awareness in the month of November, Entrepreneurship Month. And I immediately recognized, rather than every year jostling to think of what my event will be, identify a gap in the environment and build it. And so I did that for 5 years until 2019. And then through that process, I began to recognize that women entrepreneurs work so hard. They don't step away oftentimes to say, I need a time to breathe. I need a time to look and celebrate my accomplishments. I need some time to be able to recognize how resilient I am. And so almost 7, 8 years ago, the idea was born that something needs to be done. And that was how I created Celebrate Her concert.
Outstanding. So that's a transition from your Lead Hership conference from 2015 to 2019. You then morphed right into Celebrating Her as another very, very outstanding program, and show your creativity, your talent, because it takes talent to do business. I have to give it to you, and to your mother and all those Belizean women who have taken up that brave task of trying to create employment for themselves. Yeah. I want you to talk to that. Do you think there is still a stark difference, or not a difference, but do you think there is a stark gap in terms of the level in which women are bridging that gap in developing successful businesses today? We come from a society that is civil service based. Getting a job and earning a living from that job, a dependency, a hands-out thing. We have a society that is subservient to the system. Do you think that Belizean society, particularly with its women, have been able to become successful entrepreneurs and creating jobs for the Belizean economy? I have to go back to the times of the 70s when we had more Belizean entrepreneurs, self-made, lacking of any kind of professional education in its sense, but have built businesses that are in Belize today and have created jobs, because the whole thing, Danalyn, is about how do we are successful in building a business, but have we created jobs to help the Belizean economy? Talk to that, if you may, but particularly how women have performed in that arena.
That's a large task, but I'll try to digest it and relate my point of view through the lens of women and through what it takes to do business. All right. First and foremost, when we are talking about the 70s and businesses that have grown, we are predominantly talking about male-run businesses. So let's understand that fully. That has its cultural dynamics that you spoke to earlier, and which I alluded and to a certain degree stated when I looked at how my mother did her entrepreneurial initiative, right? So we have the cultural dynamics of that. We then have this matter in the business context, where I coin it very simply that your net worth, WORTH, is tied to your net work, WO, to your network, WORK, right? If a woman is at home, she isn't building her network. She's not networking, correct? A man goes out and he networks. Why is that important? I was just having a conversation today with someone explaining the importance of networking, and I'll drop it in a very simple form. One of my sponsors who is supporting me and who has my back in this initiative is Mappy's Beauty World.
Yes.
Our network
Awesome.
is from we're small. It has to be underscored, and men understand it well. You all discuss business deal while you're flipping barbecue ribs. You get a point? You all network, talk about business deals, and say, hey, we'll set up a meeting. But it is now already a connection made. All right? So the network that has to be built, and again, let's tie it back to Celebrate Our Concert. That's the point I talk about women supporting each other and that we strengthen our network, because it is so critical that we do that. When I think of, for example, and I know we're going to get into the show, right? But I need to underscore it or its relevance for here. When I think of the fact that the Belize Association of South Florida, excited about them because they have come on board as one of our ticket sponsors under the Exposure Project, and we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk more about the concert. But the person who I connected with for that to happen, who is on that board, we were childhood friends. We are friends from childhood. And so when I reached out and say, I have this going on and I'm looking for a Miami-based person to be, to link with, to do that, she was like, of course I'll do that. Again, it underscores your network. Do you see what I'm saying? And so understanding how important what you have in your contacts, that's a network, right? Varying levels the network have. I mean, those who are very close friends, your confidant, those who are just your constituents, there are levels to the friendship. But you can scroll through your contacts and you can say, I need this done. This person is in this area. Let me connect with him or her. And him or her may say, I can get it done immediately, or will say, guess what? The best person to do that for you is so-and-so. They give you a referral, or they say, I can go chat with the network. That is integral to business. Integral to business. So I mentioned the cultural dynamics. I mentioned the networking importance. And the other issue that I will hammer it down is business require that you have confidence. Again, we speak to the social dynamics where we say to girls, be quiet. Oftentimes, much more, than our boys. I still am challenged today when I'm in an audience, and I even see it among my colleagues, that because I have an ability to stand my ground in an argument or in a discussion, and they are absolutely uncomfortable with the level of strength that I have in my independent thinking. And that simply, I will say again, that came from the privilege of how I was raised. But so many people, so many women are not raised in an atmosphere that encourages and invites them to have an opinion. My father used to say to me, I send you to school not just to read books, but to think. So you're supposed to be able to read those material, think them through, and if you so desire, have your own independent thinking about it, because authors can bring their own bias. How do you feel about what this was said? How do you? Not many of even my peers had that benefit of a male nurturing environment that stimulated their ability to think independently. So for me, I find oftentimes when I'm in the presence of a lot of women, the way I articulate and my ability to be able to hold my ground is perceived as off-putting. So it is the very same gender bias issue from young, where women are supposed to not display that level of strength and confidence in self that is encouraged in male. And so when you see it in a woman, there are all kinds of labels that go on it. You know, a man is told he's very ambitious. A woman is told you are aggressive. You know what I mean? Yes, and they're going after their goals, but the man gets told you're ambitious and let's applaud him. And the woman, it becomes you're aggressive. So I hope I responded to your question.
Oh, absolutely. And it also speaks to the whole patriarchal culture in Belizean society, where male dominates, women are supposed to be the housewives. They're supposed to take care of the children, prepare the food while the man goes out and work. And he's the head of the household. He brings in the money. Do you feel that Belizean class social structure has changed today, where women was confined? Because just now, a while ago, you speak very heavily about that new breed of Belizean women, like yourself, being that your father taught you, the male in the society, in your household, to be a critical thinker. But have our women stepped out of that role today, or are they playing both roles still in Belizean society?
Today, it gets even more challenging for women, in my opinion, because the dynamics of the previous generation is that the man was the provider, took pride in being the provider. We have a shift socially now, and now the woman has to help to provide, but still be expected to be subdued and to be quiet, but to also now shoulder the burden. And quite often we have more and more women having to do it as single parent household, where not even the male is present in there, you know. So now she carries the burden of doing everything, and it gets a lot more complex for the woman.
Yes, and that is very much what I wanted you to speak about, because we see not much changes in Belizean society. A woman's in non-traditional programs, for example, a woman who has built a mechanic shop, a woman who has built a construction company in Belize, they are there, but not as much stepping out of those traditional roles into non-traditional roles, where women used to go for a job as a mechanic or a plumber, and they used to look at them and say, no, we don't hire women here. In that it was new for Belizean society to see women step out from traditional roles to non-traditional roles where men dominated those fields. Talk about that, if you may.
Well, let me first of all give you a little joke about that. My father was a contractor, as you will know. And once he dared to hire a female painter. And then he came home one day and he said, I know this wouldn't have worked. I just know it wouldn't have worked. It just created a total distraction on the job site for the males. Instead of they're working, they're looking up at the woman backside. Can I say that? But back to the point I'm making. So there are other dynamics. There are other dynamics that go with that. Yes, women are stepping out in non-traditional role. Belize, for the first time in the opening of Women's Month this year, had the women uniform forces doing a collaborative initiative and having a parade through the streets of Belize. They were like over 600 strong. That many people didn't realize so many women are now in the military, in the Coast Guard, in the police. So yes, women are indeed moving into non-traditional space, but they may not necessarily do it in an entrepreneurial undertaking, but they are moving into non-traditional spaces. And I don't have the social science analysis background to explain that, but one of the things I know that can be tied to it is the fact that professional jobs require higher education, and more women are attaining higher education than men. So now we have a greater number of women in the talent pool when recruitment time, that it just perforce. I can recall my daughter, let me say, my daughter is a major in the Belize Defense Force. And when she, years ago, I was taken aback that to me, she would have taken such a hard path. Back then I said, that's a hard path you're taking, girl, because just the dynamics of that environment itself is very command and control and very male oriented in its energy. But that was her joy. That was her talent. That's what she loved. And I watched her through the years having to struggle in many forms as she tried to fit, how do I move so that she could move from rank to rank as she's testing with men. But the most amazing thing for me was the fact that when she competed, it was over 50 out of them that did it the year, right? Male and female. Very small number of female, 7 female made it. And she came home and said to me, you would not believe what the commander said. The commander said to the men, y'all are to shame to make women beat them. Think about that. To a young woman fresh out of CJC, took a non-traditional path, was excited that after the 3 days rigors of recruitment to be an officer, she was successful, but have to now hear her sitting commander made a comment that diminished the hard work she put in. So I share that to say that the cultural adjustment is on many fronts, because it also has to do with us raising our boys, because our boys become men. And how do we raise them into a newer way of thinking, and the belief structure that drives it. So there is a lot of work. It's not just to be done with women, it's to be done also with our males and our boys, as well with our girls, recognizing that for me in Women's Month, it has nothing to do about being anti-male. For me, this is about celebrating the resilience of women, celebrating how women has moved and grown, whether personally, because it's personal development when we talk about confidence to move on and to say, I'm going to aspire to be. And the professional, how they're moving. And so for me, that it's such a complex matter. It's not very simplistic in terms of how we would want to be able to respond to it. But for effective intervention, it's a lot more complex. But I will say again, in landing my point here, that women have taken on non-traditional spaces, perhaps not in the way we used to see it before, but if nothing else, there is a host of women, there is a lot of women who I call it, they are lifestyle entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Which is a bit different from you have built a business and created employee, but they've created self-employment and they are able to feed their kids and they're taking care of business with the home because they must, but they are solopreneurs, you know, doing a lifestyle business. So we have a lot of that. You can walk around and you will see so many of that, very visible, very, very visible.
Very much so. And that is so true. You can see that is very visible. Very visible in Belizean society, especially in Belize City. And you go across that country in the villages, as I've got a chance to travel and to see. You've got women farmers that in the River Valley area that are fantastic. Mayan farmers of all cultures. As you go across, women taking up those heavy loads, carrying and being very successful at it.
Right.
And with that, we want to say this is Navel String Connections. I'm Bilal Morris, live here from my studio here in Los Angeles, and we're speaking with Dr. Danalyn Myvett, a Belizean professional in business, and her upcoming show celebrating women. And we will take a short break, and when we come back, and we just want to say before we go that this show is sponsored by the Ministry of Tourism and Diaspora Relations. And when we come back, we will talk about that extravaganza. This is Danalyn. When we come back, we'll talk about that extravaganza. We'll take a short break. And when we come back, we will go straight into that conversation. Stay with us.
Are you ready to celebrate her 2026 concert? Nobody in the world deserves this more than you.
Can you hear my fight? This song, this is my fight song. Take back my life song.
We are sisters. We stand in the gap for each other. We lift each other up when we need a shoulder to lean on.
And nobody
in all of us. No wizard that there is or was is ever gonna bring me down. Be in the room so we can celebrate together. March 28th at the Bliss. Get your ticket at Mappy's Beauty World or call 633-9404.
I am a true bandilisan.
Tell them that we born it.
Release my home, my native land.
Tell them that we born it.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we born it.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them that we born it.
Your bande, your bande.
Tell them that we born it.
Your bande, your bande.
We born it.
Your bande, your bande. I am a true bandilisan.
Tell them that we born it.
Release my home, my native land.
Tell them that we born it.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we born it.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them that we born it.
Your bande, your bande.
Tell them that we born it.
Your bande, your bande. I am a true bandilisan.
Tell them that we born it.
Release my home, my native land.
Tell them that we born it.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we born it.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them that we born it.
Your bande, your bande.
Tell them that we born it.
Your bande, your bande. I am a true bandilisan.
Tell them that we born it.
Release my home, my native land.
Tell them that we born it.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we born it.
I am proud.
And welcome, we are back. Navel String Connections here live on XTV. This is an XTV production. Our show is broadcasted every Thursday on XTV. And we just want to say that the show is sponsored by Navel String Connections. It's sponsored by the Ministry of Tourism and Diaspora Relations. Our producer is Nur Muhammad. And the man behind the control who brings us and makes this possible is Harlan, or engineer or technician. And again, we want to say it's an XTV production. And my name is Bilal Morris, your host for today, and in studio, live out of Belize City, where she's doing this amazing body of work. Dr. Danalyn Myvett is joining us here, and we hope that you have enjoyed that first segment of our conversation. I mean, this sister can pack in a lot, so we want to assure a 1.5 hour show is not big enough for her. And we want to go straight, Danalyn, into the show itself. And I was speaking to you off the record just now and say that I have watched the last year show, and I was thinking about, wow, how fantastic the show is. What is it that goes into the show? Who produces it? Who has written it? Is it this? Who is your crew? Talk about that, if you may, as a segment into the highlights of this 2026 Celebrate Her production. Talk about what it is that goes into the show, from the writing to the producing to the people on your crew. How do you attract this body of talent that we see there? Women, outstanding entertainers and stuff like that. But what also amazed me was the ambience, the stage. so beautifully decorated and so spectacular, you know, very attractive. Talk about that, if you may, as we go into this second segment.
I will talk about it through the lens of business, because I must. From inception, there was a clear vision of what we want to achieve, spoke to the tenets of what is the tenet that will anchor this event. And then, having done that, so this event, the vision of this is, let's create a space where we get to celebrate women, but it's for women and the men who love them.
Just want to say, Harlan, can you start showing do the B-rolls of the pictures, so as a sister brings us these highlights, our audience can see what is it that she's talking about, because this pictures tell for itself as you speak, darling.
So clear, we had a clear vision for this show. And in doing that, there are some tenets that anchor it. One is that it had to be very family oriented, meaning, so because all of the tenets that it stood for and the beliefs and the mindset germane to it drives the atmosphere in terms of the audience and what comes on stage. So it had to be an environment for us that is family oriented. One, so that it speaks for itself in terms of the type of songs that will be featured. It had to have been an environment, as far as we envisioned it, that women will come out and feel supported and just have an enjoyable night. And we have woven that through many different forms in which it unfolds. So the vision for it was very clear. We have surprise gifts that come out, door prizes that we give. Actually, that came out of a sponsor that found us, called us and said, we support, we saw this ad and we want to support. And Santiago Castillo Limited every single year gives us the door prizes. So we have that. We have consistent because of what the vision is. We have consistent support as major event sponsors from Public Utilities Commission, from the Social Security Board, from Madisco. We this year brought on Currency. Very happy to have them on board. We have had Mappy Beauty World for a long time, for the past 2-3 years with us now, as our outlet for it. And these are businesses that support the bedrock and the root of what this event is all about. So in terms of where you talk about, you see what it is, there is a clear vision for it. And that vision is excellence as well. Whatever we do must be done with excellence. Whatever we do must be setting the bar in terms of this space that we now come in. Because remember, I said to you, what I learned from I was a young girl is that excellence matters, not mediocrity being called excellence, excellence in its true form. And so what that means, you got to envision what that looks like. We want a stage. We want certain things that don't get seen here in Belize, don't get done normally. That's what we want to do. So the innovation in terms of business and doing things different, because we also wanted it to be a concert that had its own unique flavor. So each year there are 3 segments. This year for 2026, the segments Trust, Truth, and Triumph. And trust is very clear for us because it's also another tenet built in. We also promote interfaith connection. And so there is always an opening. We always open the segment doing spiritual songs, doing songs that in its own form, and it's our way of saying thank you. So we always have the opening segment doing spiritual songs. In that, we intertwine also the matter of bringing the youth, because for us, youth must also be involved in this program because for exposure. And therefore, the youth are always typically slotted in that segment. And we do it through a very structured, strategic path. We feature one year the Anglican Cathedral College Choir. Another year, we featured the All Saints School Guitar Girls. This
I hope,
year,
let's stick up in there with
sure.
Harlan. Let's see these pictures, man. When as as you talk, we are missing out of the action. Harlan, let's show these pictures on the screen as our sister speaks here. Maybe Harlan is having some trouble. There we go. Yes.
Yeah. So another of the underbelly talent of it in terms of the strategy for the vision is that we must bring our youth in as well, because we want them to be exposed. They're the next generation. And so we want them to see the hard work that it takes, what excellence look like. You cannot create excellence running a show in 2 weeks. It takes a year. We already have the theme for 2027 identified.
Wow.
A year in advance. And then we begin to look for what will serve those themes. So we build our youth into it as well. It's not just the experience, and well, we look for young artists or our youth from the schools and bring them in. This year we are featuring Wesley College Choir as a big part of the program. We do that every single time. We look for how can we bring the youth in. We have the interfaith element I talk about, and we link. There are many layers to it, and it's integrated because that's what effective strategy is. It's integration of your various elements into a cohesive whole. We linked in the business world and say to the business world, listen, here is an event that you can use to buy tickets to support this event as a community conscious organization, but also to make your women staff know you recognize them in the workplace. And so different businesses have come on and they have their own methodology as to how, when they would buy 10 tickets, etc., how they would distribute them. But it is now taking on that kind of acceptance where, are you going to have your show? You want 10 tickets. We also built in, and this is critical to Navel Stream, we built in what is called the Exposure Project. And the Exposure Project is premised on the idea that the best gift you can give anyone is exposure to an environment that otherwise they would not have, because that is how people aspire. And under the Exposure Project, we source sponsors for tickets that we give to under-resourced attendees who would otherwise not be able to attend. In doing that, when we had the concept started, we recognized, let's link the diaspora. And we started out with women, and they responded phenomenally. And again, I'm showing strategy has worked through this program as I'm explaining it. I went to the lowest hanging fruit. I went to my friend, Sumaya Morris, and I said, girl, here is the vision. I book a meeting. Although we are good friends, I book a meeting and I pitched the vision and I sold the vision. And she said, I'm in. I then booked a meeting with my friend, Dorothy Pandy. And she said, don't ask me to just give. Ask me how I can serve the vision. Let me this year serve as your ambassador. And on the US side, find others for you. I then booked a meeting with my friend, Michelle Clark. And my network, and they were all in. Because the first year, seeding it is always the toughest, right? But once we get off the ground, it begins to take shape. I mean, and now I have people from the diaspora responded so well, Bilal, that to date, over the past 3 years, we have gifted 425 tickets under the Exposure Project. For me, it's awesome because what did we do, for example, in the first year with it? We went to all the high schools. We gifted them 10 tickets. We met with the principal and said, I'm going to gift your school 10 tickets. You are to identify 5 girls that are under-resourced, because you know, schools you'll know.
That is beautiful.
You will gift each of those girls
Yes.
2 tickets. They will go home and gift their mom. They came out as mother-daughter team doing that. It has taken many forms in terms of how it works. And so as we move through this year for the first time, and so I'm so excited about it that I have to say, this is the first year we have an association out of the diaspora that has come on board in the organization of the Belize Association of South Florida. Because before it has always just been individuals. We are excited that they came on board and they said, let us take on 10. We are going to sponsor 10. And they clearly delineated where they want their 10 tickets to go. And we are like, absolutely no problem, because you can determine where you want the tickets to go. Or some people would say, I don't care who you give it to, I just want to support. And then that is when we look for and move it. So that's the amazing, to me, the amazing thing about it, to watch young people or to watch not so young people walk in and say, I've never been in the bliss, never been in the bliss. And they get to come in there. So we build in there now the exposure. And why is that important? It's not just for that. It is to also ensure we have a diverse audience. That was a very essential element of our core belief, because the bliss is oftentimes packed with those who can afford to attend. And we wanted the show to have a diverse audience. And so we took on the load to ensure the audience is diverse. It wasn't just we want it and we hope it will happen. We figure out a strategy, and that strategy linked us into the diaspora. Now we have local that as well that would say, I want to come on board and I would want to support and I would want my tickets. One year, a business house said, I would want to bring out Help Age Belize. Sponsored 10 tickets for Help Age Belize to come out, and they came out. And so that is what makes this an exciting program. It's innovative, it's different. And for us, it is very relevant to what Women's Month is all about. It's very relevant to what we need in Belize in terms of understanding that you can move fast, you alone, but if you want to go far, go there through collaboration. And for us, that makes this very exciting, linking a clear vision to the strategy. So after that, moving people and getting people, the fellow Jim Collins says, you know, it's not just getting people on the bus, it's getting people in the right spot on the bus. So after the entire vision is articulated, then you know, where do you go? How do you source? Who do you put on? And where are they best seated for success? I cannot fail to mention the role that somebody like Sandra Mackey play in all of this. Sandra Mackey manages the whole stage. Once we reach show night, I don't exist anymore. I am not there. That is Sandra's Mackey baby, and she run that show based on what we have scripted, based on what we want. I don't even go at that backstage bliss. I don't even go there. I sit in the audience so I can examine and I can look at it and I can say in real time, we need to do better here. We need to fix this here. Next year, we're gonna make this happen. That's my role on the night, because I have nothing to do with what's happening on backstage. That is all Sandra Mackey, who comes from Jankuno Production. She's producing shows all the time. So as I said, getting the right people on the bus and getting them on the right spot is what it's all about.
Oh man, that's amazing. I mean, you covered all the grounds there in terms of how a show like that comes to be. But what I was very amazed by is how the diaspora, because I remember when you presented the idea to me last year, as we invited you to come on the show, about getting the diaspora on board, and I have to try to get some more diaspora businesses on board here.
Yeah.
such business have loved the concept when I presented it to them, and we hope that they come aboard. And I myself will have to make good my sponsorship. So,
Well, I'll chat with you when we
my
finish up, because
donation to
I would
the
love to know that
underserved,
business.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I very much, because I am very excited about this. I could see the theme and the objectives in terms of what you're trying to achieve. The upliftment of women, the celebrating of women, and to empower, the word empower here. And I see a show like that very much empowering women. I was just looking at the Ruta Maya thing, and I'm not no much of a Ruta Maya fan, right? I come from the whole harbor regatta thing. But I was amazed to see the unity that was shown in the arrival of those. And we don't see, Danalyn, a lot of that unity in Belizeans. We have been known about people who run against one another, you know what I mean? But when you see that, and this show, I have to also see, looking at the highlights of the videos and the pictures, the Ruta Maya unity of those paddlers when they came in with those boats, and people were saying that it just run chills over their spine. I guess what they were looking at, we rarely see Belizeans in that unified force, you know, and to see Belizean women in that unified force on celebrating women in the show was very, very touching and moving for me. You know, that you want to go beyond inviting more people to help be a part of this in terms of contributing to make more Belizeans on the ground who would not, as you said, necessarily had a chance to go see a show like this, to come into that space, you know, to come into that space. And I think we want to call out to more Belizeans in the diaspora, as your purpose of coming on here tonight in promoting the show, but to speak to those Belizeans also in the diaspora that you can play a significant role by contributing financially to celebrating her. And as Danalyn Myvett so well articulated the vision of the show today, we hope that our viewers, Belizeans in the United States and the United Kingdom, wherever you are, if you mean what you say when you mean to help develop Belize, this is a way in which you can help develop Belize. This is celebrating women, the backbone of Belizean society, or women. And I just wanted to add that as you went in and just so well articulated the vision of it. It is so very, very purposeful. Tell us, if you may, Danalyn, and I want to ask Harlan again, if he can, in this, as we move along, tell us again how you have been able to impress on government. This is what, the third show?
Fourth.
This is your fourth show.
This is our fourth.
It has now become an institution. It has now become an institution. How have you been able to impress on government to understand that something great is happening here with celebrating women? And how have you been able to bring, or are you been able to bring government aboard this? I know it is a private sector initiative where it is the grassroots as well as the middle class and whatever class you are that have come to celebrate and supported this. But how have you impressed on the Belizean government itself over those 4 years, and are they aboard?
This will, you actually make me chuckle, and here's the thing, right? When it started and I went on the media, the position I shared is that we oftentimes rely too much on government to do things for us.
Good point.
We expect government to solve everything. So, not meaning to bash anything with government, the point I want to make is traditionally Women's Month activities were closed activities because you need an invited guest, you need an invitation. You would hear this various government arm doing this initiative, and it's going to be in this place, but it's typically by invite. So the first year, the vision is I wanted any and all women to be able to access an event in Women's Month that says you are worthy. And so I created Celebrator. Again, that was a part of it, because everything, for my mind, most things were closed. You had to be on the invite list, you know, and most of us are not on the invite list. So I espoused the position that there is too heavy a reliance on government to solve all the issues. The private sector has a role to play, and we need to step to the plate and play that role. So in answer, in a nutshell, to your question, I can say the way support has happened is that the women's department, which is now the Women's Gender and Family Department, I believe it is, it has been renamed. Every single year they support us with buying tickets.
Awesome.
Every single year they buy a block of tickets, and that is where the ball stops in terms of when we are thinking government. Now, if we were to think of it in terms of its statutory body, I would then say Belize Tourism Board sponsored us for 3 years. They didn't come on board this year, but they sponsored us for 3 years. I was disappointed to lose them this year, but so be it. You know, life is not perfect. Social Security Board has been with us from the beginning, but all 4 years. So if we're looking at it through the statutory form, then that is it. DFC has likewise was with us for the last 3 years. So through those arms, although when we say government, I always think of it as government department and government ministry, etc. I would love. How would I want their support? I don't want their support in my just going and begging. I don't believe, I wasn't raised to be a beggar. Maybe it's a privilege. And so I have a whole thing about that we have become a country of beggars. And I know that maybe I can be saying that from privilege, but I would love to see, for instance, that they would buy blocks of tickets and celebrate their women.
Yes,
you know what I mean? I would love to have been able to see that happening, where they come on board and recognize their women staff, and they would buy tickets.
Yes, indeed. And we hope to see the Prime Minister and his wife at the front row in the reserve state.
Let me say, the first year, the special envoy was awesome. Yes. She stepped in, she was a big sponsor, and we were our breaking year. I went at a meeting, I pitched to her, because at that time, again, it was women and whatever, and she was immediately on board for our seeding year, and she did, and her office did an amazing job in supporting us and getting us off the ground in that first year, which is the essential year, because after that, you begin to grow your following. You know what I mean?
Yes,
so,
indeed.
Yes,
yeah. Indeed. That is so good to hear, and you have really answered that in its, in its word form, in that is happy to hear so many Belizean institutions, both private and public, more private than public, nevertheless, but we would like to see, I'm just bigger on that, we would like to see a sort of we want to see a unanimous support from government itself in terms of supporting this, because, our country was built on the backs of women. In so many ways, as you have rightfully articulated it throughout the show. And we want to call, the call is that you're not going to beg nobody, but the call is we invite you to come to something great is happening here. And with that, we want to say that this is Navel String Connections. I'm Bilal Morris, and our producer is Noor Mohammed. This is a XTV production. And the show is sponsored by the Ministry of Tourism and Diaspora Relations, We're speaking with our sister, Dr. Danalyn Myvett, who is the executive, the person, the brainchild behind the upcoming Celebrate Her Women's show that will be shown at the Bliss coming up pretty soon. We ask you Belizeans, get your tickets now. And those Belizeans in the diaspora, sponsor some of these Belizeans to come to that show. We call on you. You have the means. And support, put your money where your mouth is and support that. The sister is calling here. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we will wrap up with our sister, Dr. Danalyn Myvett. Stay with us.
Are you ready for Celebrate Her 2026 concert? Nobody in the world deserves this more than you.
Can you hear my fight? This song, this is my fight song. Take back my life song.
We are sisters. We stand in the gap for each other. We lift each other up when we need a shoulder to lean on.
And nobody in all of us, no wizard that there is or was, is ever gonna bring me
down. Be in the room so we can celebrate together. March 28th at the Bliss. Get your ticket at Mappy's Beauty World or call 633-9404.
I am a true born Belizean. Belize my home, my native land. I want you people to understand. I am proud to be a Belizean. Your bande, your bande. Your bande, your bande.
And we are back. This is Naval String Connections. We are wrapping up our show, and we have as our guest today Dr. Danalyn Myvett, and we are talking about the Celebrate Her show, the upcoming big extravaganza, spectacular. Just looking at the pictures and the videos, and the sister and I was talking about how expensive it is to put off a show like this. That ain't cheap. just looking at that, I guess the viewers could have a chance when Harlan was showing the B-rolls of the videos and the pictures, that just the look of that, the stage and what goes into all of that. That ain't cheap. It's very expensive to put off a show like that. So we have to really, really compliment and congratulate sister here, Dr. Danalyn Myvett, for putting off 4 shows already, right, Danalyn? You have put off.
This is going to be our 4th.
This is going to be the 4th.
Yes.
Celebrate Her. And we you know, purpose of having her on here is that we make this significant call to the Belizean diaspora and also to more in the government sector. Come and be a part of this. Something great is happening here. If you are not a part of this celebrating Belizean women, then I don't know where else you would want to be. This has been a brain child piece. Somebody had come up with vision. People who have vision here, and the person sits right here with us today on the String Connection. But my sister, I want to give you the last word here in terms of, as we wrap up our show and we say goodbye to our viewers. Tell us, Danalyn, what is it that you would like to, the message that you are bringing through this vision called Celebrating Her? What is the vision of it?
I want to do more connection. I particularly relevant to this show. I would really want to be able to connect with business houses in the diaspora to secure their support, because there is so much I want to be able to do with the show and deliver and show as our capacity in Belize to have talent and to execute. And so for me, it's making deeper connection with business houses, that Belizean owned businesses in the diaspora. I would love to make that connection, that I would be able to list some of them as well as our sponsor for the show. And if not for the event sponsor, then at least to be ticket sponsor for the exposure project. I would love for that to happen one way or the other. It is able to get that connection going, that they can keep a show like this alive, so that when I mention, for instance, our major sponsors like Currency this year, Public Utilities Commission, Social Security Board, Madisca, Bridging Belize, and Mappy's Beauty World, that I would be able to list some diaspora businesses in there as well. And I don't want to ever, because I'm telling you, I'm so excited about the fact that the Belize Association of South Florida came on board. Because at least if it's one, you start with one. The journey starts with one step, right? And I did mention to you from last year that I would want to attract more of that kind of association level. So even if it's the chamber, I would want to be able to connect and do that, because I believe there is a space for this. I think women in Belize, we do our part. We have been doing the heavy lifting, and we will continue to do the heavy lifting. And so an event like this that celebrates what it is we do and our resiliency should be supported. And so we invite you all to support this worthy endeavor. Tickets are available at Mappy's Beauty World, or you can call 633-9404. The event is March 28th. We push off 7:30 sharp. We start. And
the Belizeans in the diaspora want to support it financially. Yes. How can they do that? How can they fund it?
Via Zelle, so I can give you to my email address, my company, bctdinfo@gmail.com. So I could, perhaps you can plug that in there, I can put that. But if not, then contact me through Messenger, Danalyn Myvett. I am on Facebook, and then we can connect and get that info out. But linking it there would work as well. Awesome. On your show. And I will hold you to give me your sponsor and chat with you after.
Oh, for sure. And I'm going to go and try to bring in, beside myself, the business community here. And I know one in particular is watching. They're watching the show because they were very excited about the whole show, looking at it. These people are artists, and they are also business people, and they are women. And so I know that I can rest assured to say that they would come aboard in making a contribution. And my sister, we want to thank you again for coming on and accepting the invitation to come on Navel String Connection today in your 4th annual celebrating her show, which is a spectacular event commemorating and celebrating Belizean women, the backbone for me of Belizean society, and those who have built Belizean society and the country of Belize itself. Belize would not have been without where it is today. It would not have been this country that has rose to where it is today if it was not for its women. And with that, I want to say that this is Navel String Connections. Our sponsors are the Belize Tourism and Diaspora Relations Department. We want to ask you to Belizeans of Diaspora to check out the Belize Diaspora desk through Ambassador Murphy in Florida. We want you, when you're in Belize, Belizeans, visit the Belize Diaspora office in Belize City and get a chance to speak with Miss Marla, very nice lady. And we want to ask you to continue to support Belize and to help build Belize. And again, we want to say this is a XTV production. Our man on the control, we want to thank him, Harlan. Our producer is Noor Mohammed. And again, we want to thank our sponsors, the Belize Tourism and Diaspora Relations Ministry. And we want to say to you, tell one to tune in next week again when you will for another episode of Navel String Connection. And with that, we want to say thank you for watching.